Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Monday, March 27th, 2017 edition of VR News. Let's talk about HTC Vive's tracker peripheral. So we've heard about this thing, talked about it several times. This is the three-pronged device that you're going to be able to attach to peripherals like baseball bats, other kind of sports equipment, and it's going to allow for tracking of essentially whatever you attach it to. What we didn't know was the exact launch and price of the device. That changed today. HTC Vive announcing at their current conference, more on that in a later story, that it would be available starting today, and indeed it is up on their website, for $99 US, about $125 US after you calculate it in shipping. Now, what do you get for that? Well, you get the tracker, a USB cable, a power adapter, a 2.4 gigahertz dongle. Remember, you still require a dongle for this, and a cradle for the dongle. A charging cradle, no doubt, they don't specify. One charge estimated to give you about 4.5 hours of charge time. So that kind of puts it in line with the Vive controllers using a rechargeable battery just like them. All right, next up, again, speaking about HTC, in the Tier 1 Chinese city of Shenzhen, there is an event right now called the Ecosystem Conference. HTC had quite a few announcements, the one we just talked about, and also some tidbits all kind of related to their software deployment platform, Viveport. Now, the first one is a reminder to everyone about their Viveport M service. Again, that's their service for mobile devices, which is something they want to increase their market share in. They are going to start releasing apps through that, was the update today. Next, they talked about, this one I'm not so sure about, an ad service that basically using the Viveport SDK would allow developers to embed advertisements directly into games or experiences. Now, right off the bat, in principle, I don't like the idea if it's done in an obvious way. If it's you playing a game like GTA 5, going past a bus stop, and there happens to be a Coke advertisement or Pepsi, fine. I can live with that. It's within the context of, the urban environment that you're in. It makes sense. It's setting appropriate, right? Playing a space game or a game with an alien civilization and running across same said Coke or Pepsi advertisement, definitely not cool. Definitely immersion breaking. So I'd have to hear more about that, kind of reserving my judgment. My initial reaction is it's open to a hell of a lot of abuse. So yeah, Viveport SDK would allow for advertising to be embedded essentially. And then the third one is Vivepaper. Now this is one I liked right when it was first announced. Using scanning codes, you would essentially be able to purchase, then read in 360/VR e-magazines or ebooks. So it's basically a subscription model. You pay the fee, get the item, and along with that item, you can have all kinds of virtual reality effects and interactivity embedded within the experience. Well, they announced today that Vivepaper was going to, with the help of a publishing group, be deployed to several cities in China, in several regions, and providing educational content. So, if you're going to pilot something like that, what a cool way to do it in the education sector. Very neat. Next story, Raising a Ruckus. This is a new animated virtual reality series from Studio Baobab. These are the guys who created Invasion! Which was the little 360 short that was basically launched around launch date of both HMDs. And it had the rabbit with the frozen pond and the aliens coming down. Well, now they're dabbling in this actual series, and they say it's going to be an interactive series. Kind of a little bit choose your own adventure. These were books decades ago where you could literally choose the character's plot path by selecting what you would like the character to do. So along those lines, they are going to allow you to not just view from different angles, but determine the outcome by making selections on the way. So yeah, very cool. They are an LA-based studio. They're aiming this at families specifically. So don't expect it to be heavy on the adult content, likely going to be, a little bit more family orientated. Now, Robert Stromberg, who is an Oscar-winning director known for things like Alice in Wonderland, Avatar, etc., he's going to be producing the series. So no word yet on exactly when it will launch or details beyond those tidbits. Now, next story. A bit of a pissoir. Haven't had one of these for a while to, tick me off. And that's Sixense rearing their heads again. Now, these are the clowns, I'm going to call them clowns, that were behind the October 2013. Let that date sink in. And I know I've complained about this before a few months ago. October 13th, 2013, they successfully funded their Sixense controller. Okay? This was at a time when that functionality simply didn't exist. I know some of you, because you came forward the last time I talked about this, were burned by these clowns. They have yet to fulfill delivery to any of the backers. Despite the colossal amount that they raised back then, not one person has received their units. They then did another Kickstarter. Thankfully, or mercifully, they weren't successful, and they ended up canceling the Kickstarter. This was about 6 months later, February, March of 2014, that they canceled this. It was going to be for some software, called MakeVR. Well, they're rearing their heads now, saying that piece of software is available, which, look, if you blew the people's money and you can't create a product that, let's be honest now, is completely useless and defunct because all the VR solutions on the market, well, of the big ones anyways, have the kind of functionality that made you unique once upon a time. It no longer is. Then at least return the money. And of course, no word from them on that. But then they go and release this MakeVR software, which quite frankly, I'm not going to give them the time and space in advertising. I will have a link if you want to read more about it. But yeah, personally, just irritates the snot out of me that they would be doing this. Now, look, if it was in tandem with an announcement, a mea culpa, an apology, that proceeds of this were going to go to pay back the backers, I got no problem with that. Because finally, even 4 years later, they're admitting what people have pretty much assumed all along. So, yeah, there you go. That's those guys. Next up, not quite as somber. HTC with their last announcement. Well, this was actually their second last at the Ecosystem event, for group bundles of their HTC Vive. Now, these bundles are going to be available. This is commercially, they're called the Vive Group Edition. You get 10 HMDs, but only one pair of lighthouses. Now, most of us know that the lighthouses can track multiple HMDs, and I believe it could potentially track all 10 of the HMDs with a single pair. It is capable of that. I'm not sure what the latency would be behind that, but that's the idea. Now, price-wise, it works out to about $721 per unit. If you compare that to the business edition, each unit on its own is about $1,200 US. So looks almost about $479, I think exactly, is the difference. But keep in mind, you're not getting those additional lighthouses. So you factor those in. Yes, it's still a bit of a deal, but you're getting one pair of lighthouses. So what could that be used for? Probably arcade application, theme park, location-based, event-based type activities. Yeah, I could see that being popular. Or hell, even companies, developers for VR games that just want to get a lot of extra units at a bit of a discount with tracking capability for their development work. I suppose that would be another one as we're talking about it. But there you go. And then their last announcement had to do with, and this one is really cool, their partnership with Warner Brothers. So this is the film studio, and the alliance partnership is for Ready Player One, which is a really cool bit of, what would you classify that? Is it cyberpunk or is it science fiction? Maybe a little bit of both, but it's basically about the future and scarcity of a lot of stuff. But one thing that is very prevalent in most people's lives, a massively multiplayer online game. And I'm not going to spoil anymore, but a pretty decent book. So this is going to be a tie-in for the virtual reality work that's going to surround the launch of the movie, which is March 30th. So that's coming right up. So what that will spawn, in other words, games coming out of that, and VR episodes, maybe interactive games, etc. So very cool. Wonder what that will produce. And actually, the release date on the film is March 30th, 2018. I should specify. That's actually a year from now. They'd be pretty hard-pressed to develop content within, 4 days? 1 day. It's the 27th today. So there you go. All right, guys, that is it for the news. Off to work on the weekly game recap episode. Guys, hope you had a decent Monday. We're getting there. 4 more days. Cheers.